Welcome to another episode of Alcohol-Free Lifestyle. Today we're talking to Project 90 graduate Scott Feehan, who is 44. He's a director of a music festival and an IT professional from Lafayette, Louisiana. And as we're having this conversation, Scott is day 95 being alcohol-free, which is incredible. We're going to hear from Scott in just a moment. But first, if you are joining us for the first time, you can get a free Alcohol Freedom Formula Guide from me by going to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. There's also a link in the description of this podcast episode where you can click on. And if you'd like to have a no obligation complimentary 15-minute coaching call with our top coach, Coach Victoria English, then you can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/schedule. There's also that link in the description as well. If you're interested in potentially joining us in our 90-day quit drinking experience, then you can schedule that 15-minute call. You're about to hear from Scott, who's just completed his 90-day quit drinking experience. Scott, welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about how you're feeling now compared to when you started.
Thanks for having me, James. It's night and day. I mean, I just feel like an entirely new person, go from what seemed like kind of a daily hangover, grogginess, fogginess in the brain, and just overall, I don't know if I'd say bad health, but just kind of existing to waking up every day, getting out of bed and just feeling great. I mean, all day, every day. It's unreal what the change has done.
Incredible. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from and what you do and what life was like when drinking was pretty much normalized in your life, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm 44. I have two kids. I was doing fine. I had, one foot in the corporate world and the other foot in this music festival production world. And I mean, everything was going great. I was, like I said, by all accounts, doing fine. But I just, I felt like I drank more than I should, but there was no big, nothing smacking me in the face, no big problem necessarily. It was, as you mentioned, it was just normalized, and I drank just like everybody else did. So I thought, but I didn't realize, after all these years, I think it just kind of slowly added up, and I didn't realize how bad I was feeling. And I don't know, it got to a point where I figured I wanted to make a change, didn't know what that change was. I found your program and gave it a shot, and it's been the best decision I think I've ever made. And 90 days later, here I am. I'm not tempted. I can't imagine ever drinking again. It's such a crazy transformation.
Almost sounds unbelievable, I'm sure, to many of our listeners, that you could have normalized alcohol so much, then gone through a process, followed that process, executed the process, and 90 days later, you're starting to talk like you may never drink again. So how's that happened, do you think? Like, how have you got to that stage?
Yeah, I mean, so it was, to backtrack just a sec. I mean, yes, it was normalized. I was a daily drinker. And I mean, that daily drink could have been a bottle of whiskey. It could have been 3/4 of a bottle. It just, over the years, the tolerance gets to where you don't even necessarily realize how much you're drinking. And I had thought about not drinking, but I didn't know how to comprehend what that was. I didn't know what a life without alcohol meant. And it wasn't, I didn't feel like, what am I going to do without alcohol? I just didn't, because it's all around me. It was so normalized in every aspect of my life. Getting off of work. All right, it's time for a drink. Let's celebrate. Time for a drink. Oh, we had a bad day. Time to drink. I mean, it's just so normalized in every single facet that I didn't even understand how to think about what life without it was. And I think that's what your program, I guess, really taught us. And I've poked fun at some of the methods that you've taught, and your coaches, Coach V and Coach Sarah. I mean, everything about it is incredible. And I just went in with an open mind, and one of my big curiosities or my big desires for the program was, I didn't want to just think of giving up something. I wanted to really rewire my brain. And I just went in with kind of an open brain and open mind and said, all right, do your work. And man, that's exactly what happened. There's so many great exercises and so much curated by you and your coaches that I just dug as deep as I could. And before I knew it, my brain kind of flipped, and it just seems normal now and natural. I can't imagine there's no desire to have another drink.
Yeah. When you said before that you were poking fun at some of our methods and some of our coaches, maybe you might just want to elaborate and clarify what you mean by that.
Yeah, I was being careful with my words. I'm not sure how much, but yeah, I mean, it's, some of your videos, some of your content, and I think it's available. I don't even know if you need to sign up for the program, but nothing about it is rocket science. It's all simple and easy things, from, pointing out that you don't necessarily desire the drink, you just want to relax, right? And so I remember seeing your first video where you pull out the rocks glass from the freezer. Well, let's make a ceremony about pouring some sparkling water in a glass and cutting the limes. And so I did that, and then I got a really nice knife to cut my limes, and that's what I look forward to now. And then I've poked fun at Coach V for the quote unquote brainwashing that she's did to me over the 90 days. But it's just all the exercise, so it's a combination of very simple techniques that you've developed and put out there for us, and then in combination with the exercises that Coach V and Coach Sarah do, it's incredible. I can't say enough about it. But yes, I absolutely poke fun, because you just look at it and you think, man, I'm not a dumb individual. Why didn't I think of this? But cheers to you. You put it all together, and it's a really, really cool program.
Thank you. I love how you've gone from one brainwashing, which is societal brainwashing, that alcohol is really great and fun and exciting, to being brainwashed inside of our 90-day experience to thinking the exact opposite, right?
And that's a fantastic point, because that's one thing that I guess I learned in the program, is how normalized it is. As you referred to the smiling assassins, all of the marketing everywhere. I mean, it's every piece of our lives. As you mentioned, we're brainwashed into thinking that alcohol is fine, it's normal, it's going to relax you. Here you go, have a sip. And so yes, I guess that's a funny point. I was brainwashed before, now I'm brainwashed the other way, and I love this way much more. So thank you for reversing that process.
Yeah, you referenced a quote or a phrase that I have inside the program, which is silent assassins. And just for the listener who might not know what that means, silent assassins is what I use to refer to anyone who's smiling when they offer you a drink. It's the waitress or the waiter who greets you at the restaurant, who's like, oh, good afternoon, good evening, sir, good evening, ma'am. Can I get you started with a drink? Or when you go to someone's house party or dinner party and they greet you and they say, oh, can I get you a wine? Can I get you a beer? And they're smiling. It's the friends saying, go on, just have one, you'll be okay. And they've got this grin on their face. And I refer to them as smiling assassins, because the reality of the situation is that alcohol is a toxin. It is a poison. And when you drink enough of it, and when I say enough, even if you're only drinking one or two standard drinks a night, 4 or 5 times a week, that is enough to compromise your health sufficiently enough that you will have health issues down the line. Not just physical health issues, but mental health issues in terms of irritability and enjoyment of life. So smiling assassins is really anyone who is greeting you with a glass of what I refer to as attractively packaged poison, because most beer and wine and liquor and it's marketed very well.
Yeah.
You've seen a champagne bottle, oof, beautiful. You drink from that, but inside is something that is causing us fatigue, irritability, frustration, self-loathing. And what we do inside of our 90 days is to rewire our brain around that and give our folks tools on how to handle smiling assassins. So how did you handle smiling assassins, or who were the smiling assassins in your life, Scott, and how did you handle them during these 90 days?
They come from everywhere. It's my friends, family, it's going out to restaurants. None of that changed during my 90 days. I mean, and that's one of the things about your program too. You say you don't have to avoid any of this, and So going into the 90 days, I just started, and I always drank liquor, and I always drank it out of my everything cup. So just going into it, nobody really noticed the difference. But yeah, as we went forward, I was certainly faced with situations where people were, even situations where people were about to literally pour the liquor into my glass, and but it was easy. I politely turned them down, and none of it was terribly challenging. And that's another thing that we talk about a lot in the program. Nobody really cares, right? I think you build this up in your own head more than what reality is. Nobody really cares if you're drinking. It's really just up to you as to whether or not you want to do it. But yeah, I was able to make it through a lot of my normal social situations in life, whether it was friends, family, out and about at parties. Um, and I was able to politely turn them all down and make it through. And it's not even an issue anymore. Um, once you learn how to politely do it and learn how to walk into the situations prepared. I mean, I show up prepared with what I'm going to drink. Have new drinks of choice now. But yeah, just you get the tools and you learn how to use them, and it makes it easy.
What were some of the responses that you got from folks when they realized that you weren't drinking, or when you politely declined their offer of a drink?
It ranges. Some for people who have known me for years, they know me as a drinker. So I think their first inclination is to think that I'm just giving it up for a minute, and they're fine with that, and I'm fine with them thinking that. And there's no decisions that have to be made now. Normally, it's people saying, "Oh, that's great. It's good to take a break. It's good to cut back. I mean, maybe I need to do the same." And it's led to some really good conversations with several people, kind of, on the sideline of the party, just kind of reaching out, saying, "Man, how was it? How was it difficult? I've been thinking about that for a while." I think it's in everybody's heads. Everybody thinks about either cutting back or giving it up. They just don't necessarily know where to start. So it has opened some really good conversations with a lot of people in my life to that regard.
Mm. How many pounds did you lose over the 90 days, Scott?
I'm at 24 now.
Wow. So you lost 24 pounds in 90 days. Did that surprise you?
Yeah, it did. Because not only did I not diet, but, starting the program, that's another thing that's talked about a lot is don't worry about the weight. Don't worry about any of this stuff. Focus on the alcohol. And that's what I did. I even took in more sugar in the beginning, because that's another thing that happens to when you go through this transformation. I mean, I was eating candy and ice cream, and I guess somewhere maybe a third of the way through, I did get to a point where I was able to control some of the sugar cravings, and so I was mindful about what I ate. I wasn't just going crazy on it, but it wasn't what I was trying to do. So I think just by getting all of that poison out of my life, it just started to come out, and it's a fantastic feeling, because I mean, for years, you have this stress level in your head of like, man, I need to get in shape, I need to lose some of these pounds, I need to do this, but it's just such a vicious cycle. I think when you have alcohol in your life, I know for me, I was able to make progress maybe during the week, right? And then the weekend comes around and you do the weekend thing, and I put it, erase all progress of the week on the weekend. And that's the vicious cycle that was happening over and over and over again before. And now that I was able to get the poison out, it just opened up so much. So weight was one of them. And I still have a ways to go. I still have some personal health goals, but the difference now is the alcohol is the big dominoes. Another thing that we've talked about in the program. Now that that's out of the way, there's no anxiety, there's no stress about my future path. Before there was anxiety in my head, thinking, man, am I just destined to be an old fat guy, unhealthy, immobile, not going to be able to keep up with my kids or grandkids? Like the trajectory that I was on was that. And now it's just a different trajectory, but there's no anxiety about, okay, I need to go on a crash diet now. I just understand that continuing down this path, I will hit my goals, just in a very natural way, and it's really empowering.
I love how you describe it as a very natural way, because I always think that when we're not drinking, we're behaving or we're acting the way that nature always intended to. When we're drinking, we're kind of trying to manipulate nature in a way, aren't we?
Yeah.
So when I look in the mirror each morning, having exercised and eaten pretty well and not having drunk alcohol and drinking plenty of water throughout the day, when I look in the mirror, I'm not really admiring myself like, oh, you're such a handsome beast. Look at you. I just go, oh, yeah, that's the way nature intended me to look. When I wake up after 8 hours sleep and I feel pretty good and I've got consistent energy throughout the day and I'm generally enjoying my life, I go, oh, yeah, this is the way that nature always intended me to feel. It's when we start adding all of this nonsense like alcohol and sugary foods and processed foods and all of this kind of nastiness. And then we start being lethargic and we start sitting on chairs all day instead of standing and moving. That's when nature really reminds us, hey, you ain't doing what I planned for you. And that shows up with 24 extra pounds on your face and in your gut, probably, like maybe what you experienced. And so now it seems like, you use the word natural, a natural progression or a natural way, I think you said. Now, for me anyway, you seem like you're looking and feeling the way that nature always intended you to look and feel. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, 100%. It's that's been one of the nicest pieces about this, because as I said, I was not dieting. That was not one of my goals at all. I completely immersed myself in the program with the focus of rewiring my brain around alcohol. And then parallel to that, hey, by the way, you just dropped a few pounds. So back to your point, yes, it was just a natural thing that happened. Now, as I mentioned, I still have some pounds to go. I still have some progress that I need to make to get to where I think nature wants me to be. But I had so many years of of dumping this poison in me. I mean, I'm blown away by the progress I made in 90 days, but the expectation could not be that you'll solve everything within 90 days. But when I look 6 months out, 9 months out, 12 months out, I feel very confident that 12 months from now, I'm going to be very close to where nature wants me to be. And then from there, I'm going to continue down that path. And that's the most comforting feeling of all of it. As I said, you get out of this vicious cycle of how do you start making progress and 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And so it's just wonderful to, as you said, be where nature, at least I'm on the path that I think nature wants me to be. And at some point I will I'll get my body in check to where nature ultimately wants it.
Yeah. And what feedback have you received from your family maybe about this new version of Scott?
Oh, it's huge. My wife gave up drinking, I think 8 years ago. And she's made several comments through the program. I didn't tell her right away that I joined the program because I had no clue what I was getting into. I mean, I remember looking at the last glass of whiskey in my hand and saying, okay, I think this is probably the last glass, but I have no idea what the next step is. So I found your podcast the next day. The day after that, I did this project. So I didn't tell her until a few weeks into the project. And then maybe a few weeks after, when she saw things start to stick, she's made several comments. But one of the comments she made was, I didn't even wish for you to be alcohol free because I didn't think it was a possibility. I was just hoping maybe you could drink less. And from her perspective, as I mentioned earlier, there were no glaring issues. I wasn't missing work. I wasn't missing the family. But now just understanding how much more present I am for the family, whether it's getting home from work, where before, after work, knock back a few drinks, you're not as clear-minded, not as present when you get home. Or if I go out to watch a football game with my friends or whatever it is that I do, when I get home at night, even if it's 10 o'clock at night, I can lie down in bed with my wife and just talk and catch up. And it's all of those little things that really started to add up. And that was another thing that I learned in the program is you really start stacking up just the everyday little bitty wins. Like aside from the weight loss and anything else that you can chalk up as a big thing, it's all the little bitty things. And that's what I think has really meant a big difference to my wife and my kids too. I mean, they're 6 and 11 years old. So they don't even necessarily realize yet the full benefit of having a father that's going to be fully present for the rest of their lives. But certainly my wife has, and it's been really nice.
A father who's fully present for the rest of their lives is what you just shared. I mean, that's impactful, isn't it?
Right.
Absolutely. And a lot of people mistakenly think that it's all about just quitting drinking, and that I quit drinking and all of a sudden my life is better. But right. The reality is that the reality is that quitting drinking is a mechanism to get you to the point where you can now be present with your kids and your family, where you can now face relationship struggles with your wife or your husband or your boss or your colleague or your friends, where you can start to make strong, positive, clear choices as opposed to no choice at all or distracted or poor choices. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, and as I meant, that's what I've been really focusing on in this program, because like I said, as you mentioned, it's not all about the big, you don't just get alcohol out and then everything's solved. And we've seen a lot of that in the program. There's all of the members are going through different stages in their lives. For me, that was a big goal, was to be more present with my family, but overall get my life back in balance, because as I had one foot out in the corporate world, another doing this festival thing, and I was working way too much, I was drinking way too much, and just nothing was really in balance. So that was my overall goal, was to get everything back in balance. And so the alcohol was one piece of this bigger transition in my life. And that's what I've seen with other members as well. As you mentioned, it's not like alcohol is a mechanism. That's it. And if you can isolate that and get it out of your life, everything else, you can deal with everything else just that much more clearer and with a better mind.
Mm. I love that you were listening to this podcast for a total of about 1 day, and then you enrolled in Project 90. That's pretty amazing. I also love it when a podcast listener actually listens and then books a call with Coach Victoria and then ends up, enrolling and going through this process. It's so satisfying for me to see folks graduate like yourself at the end, having first listened to the podcast. So was it one episode, 2 episodes? Did you just download a few episodes first and then took action? How did that play out?
Yeah, so I decided that night while I was looking at my whiskey, I'm going to make a change. The next morning, I just started searching for podcasts. And it's very hard for me in general to find a podcast that I resonate with. So I'd never looked for alcohol-free podcasts before. I just started searching. I found a few of them, and for whatever reason, yours just resonated. And I listened, I don't know, I probably listened to 5 or 6 on that first day of just stories of people who had gone through the program. And that's what really resonated with me, because it was people that I would align myself with, their way of thought. And there wasn't a lot of, I don't know, pomp and circumstance about it. And I did just a quick look on your website, and like I said, it all resonated. But so I did that first call, and I just remember saying, yeah, sign me up. Why not? Let's roll. It just all really made sense. So yeah, maybe 5 or 6 podcasts in 1 day, and then the next day I was in.
I love it. Well, I want to acknowledge you for the amazing accomplishments that you've achieved, not just 90 days alcohol free, which of course is amazing, but clear-headedness, lost 24 pounds. You've shared previously that you feel fantastic every morning when you wake up. I think you said before we hit record on this episode that your stamina has increased, and overall health, you're just feeling incredible every day. So there's some pretty terrific results. And I also want to acknowledge you for the very positive contribution you made to our other clients as well. Just for the benefit of the listener, we have 6 group Zoom calls available every week. Clients are expected to attend at least 1 per week, but they can attend as many as they choose. Scott certainly seemed to attend many more than the bare minimum requirement of one a week. How many did you do in the end, Scott? What do you think you averaged out per week?
Yeah, I'd love to see that report. I mean, it was at least 4 a week.
Wow. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And you were always sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I made as many as I could, and I carved out whatever time I could, because the calls were, every single one of those calls, I got something out of it. It was pure gold. I mean, your coaches are incredible.
Yeah, great. And and you were always very positive and supportive of other clients. It wasn't just about you. As we always say in Project 90, the fastest way to learn anything, the fastest way to allow yourself to be brainwashed about alcohol, I guess, is to teach it, is to teach what you've learned. And so the teaching comes from you sharing on those calls and sharing on our Marco Polo app, which is a mobile phone app where members record little video selfies to each other just to keep in contact in between calls. And you were always a very positive and supportive influence for other members. So for that, I thank you, sir.
No, that was a big part of the program. And I remember early on in the program thinking, you know what, I've seen all of the content and the methodology. And I remember for a brief second thinking, all right, I don't know if I need this program anymore. But I realized early on that the power of that community and the group and the polos, I mean, that's probably 90% of what your program has to offer. And just going through that journey with everybody around you and sharing with everybody's experiences, their struggles, their victories. I mean, that was huge. So yes, it was wonderful to be a part of that community.
Fantastic. Last question, Scott. What does the future hold for you now?
Oh man. So this project, I think, it was a big milestone for me. And as I mentioned, it was to get the alcohol dealt with. And so moving forward, I've gotten a lot of my work life in a much better place compared to what it was before. So I'm working fewer hours, really focused on family. So I think there's a couple specific goals that I have. So one is personal health. As I mentioned, I do have some more weight. I need to get myself where nature wants me to be. But I just really want to focus on family for the next, as long as my kids are in the house and growing up, I want to spend as much time as I can with them. And I think those are probably my two main primary goals to focus on moving forward.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Scott. So appreciate you being a guest on the podcast. Congratulations for your success again, and can't wait to continue watching your journey. Well done.
Excellent. Thank you so much, James. And thanks to your coaches and everybody in the community.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I want to load you up with some free stuff. If you look in the show description, there's a link there to get my guide, which is the Alcohol Freedom Formula Guide. And in that guide, I will walk you through the process and system for successfully reducing or quitting alcohol. It's the same system and process that I give to my clients inside of Project 90. And if you would like to get your hands on that guide, you can click the link in the description part of this episode, or you can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. Likewise, if you would like to be considered for Project 90 to join our community and get some accountability, some coaching, and have fun, achieve some goals over at least 90 days with our help and support, then you're invited to schedule a complimentary coaching call with one of my coaches. You can do that by clicking the link in the show description or going to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/schedule. Now, Project 90 is for over 30s only. And it's really for people who are ready to get long-term power over alcohol. You don't have to quit forever, but you will have to quit for at least 90 days with our support. Just a reminder, 95% of my content is free and plastered all over the internet. If you just Google James Swanwick and the word alcohol, you'll find that. For those of you who want additional support, if you want coaching, fun, accountability, if you realize that you can't do this on your own or you just plain don't want to, then I invite you to schedule that call and we can talk about if Project 90 is for you. If you would like to take some of my supplements, swanvitality.com is the website. I'll put a link in the show notes as well. I have a liver support product called Loving Liver, which I designed and specially formulated to help remove toxins from your liver after years of alcohol consumption. Again, there's a link in the show description. We've also got a green powder there, which turns into a green juice filled with amazing ingredients to support you and give you energy throughout the day. And there's also a magnesium product, which I take every night to help me prepare for sleep and to sleep through the night. So there's a few options there. Lastly, if this episode or the show in general has helped you or supported you in any way, I would so appreciate it if you would write a review. It really does help the show climb the rankings and expose the show to people who don't yet know about us. So if this show has benefited you in any way and you feel compelled to pay it forward, just writing a short little review, hopefully a nice one, will be so appreciated, and I will thank you immensely. Lastly, if you'd like to talk to me about anything at all, feel free to send me an email at james@alcoholfreelifestyle.com. I do read and respond to every email. And you can also follow me on Instagram at @JamesSwanwick. Send me a message there. And I look forward to connecting with you soon. Catch you on the next one.